If you thought the 2023 season was going to be a dull and boring one, you thought wrong. While Red Bull is expected to start the campaign strong, teams like Mercedes have a lot to prove to the world, and it seems like a lot has been done in the garage as well. That is why the Silver Arrows will be a real threat for the Austrian team, and it's definitely something Red Bull needs to be careful of. What kind of car did Mercedes build? Can they use Red Bull's sporting penalty to their advantage? And what are some of the improvements that Mercedes made for 2023? Ever since the 2022 season started, it was evident that Mercedes built a car that won't be competitive, because during the pre-testing in Bahrain, we were able to see that the no-pod sidepod design hasn't been quite useful for them. On the contrary, it proved itself to be very controversial and one that took the team 2 steps behind, which is why they were half a second behind the top teams, Red Bull and Ferrari. But throughout the middle of the 2022 season, Mercedes understood what went wrong, and that is why they enhanced the performance with their new no-pod design. They are very confident in this concept, and as Wolff said, the DNA of the car will be changed, but the philosophy will remain the same, so we shouldn't expect any huge movements in this manner. What we should expect, however, is Mercedes actually catching up to the red and blue cars, and one of the reasons why is because they'll have more time to spend in the aerodynamic facilities in order to understand the main issues. Remember, Red Bull was penalized with a 10% deduction of time in the aerodynamics facilities, such as the wind tunnel factories and the CFDs. And by winning the Constructors' Championship, this time increased to 15% for the second-place team on the grid. That team is Ferrari, and Mercedes has 5% more compared to the second-place team, which means that they will have 20% more time to spend in the wind tunnels and the CFDs compared to Red Bull. Why is this a good thing for Mercedes, and why should we keep an eye on it? Because most of the issues that the W13 experienced were of an aerodynamic nature. If the Silver Arrows can understand what went wrong with their car and fix the porpoising, they will need a vast amount of time to spend in these particular facilities. From 2023 on, the grid has experienced a bit of a twist in the rules, with the floor edges being raised 10 millimeters and the side edges being raised 15 millimeters. With that being said, Mercedes are definitely going to utilize the time that they have in the CFDs and wind tunnels, because the sidepod concept that they have implemented now will need a lot of work to become more stable in the main straights. This comes after Nicolas Tombazzi spoke about the regulations for 2023, saying that he isn't really certain whether the rules are enough to eradicate the porpoising issue, and that only time will tell if the teams will suddenly stop bouncing. If this turns out to be the truth, then, of the top 3 teams, Mercedes has the best chance to make successful changes to their car, given the fact that they will have the most time to spend in the facilities that are here to test out the aerodynamic prospects of the car. Sure, you have Red Bull, a team that understood the philosophy of porpoising, and a team that has reportedly made a thicker yet lighter floor at the same time, which kind of defies the laws of physics. However, nothing is certain when it comes to this question, and they will definitely want to have some more time to spend in the wind tunnels and the CFD factories. They should have thought about that before they were caught cheating. And now teams like Mercedes are lurking in the back and waiting to see what the season has ahead of them. One of the main changes that Mercedes implemented for the 2023 model is the floor. Obviously, the floor now needs to be thicker in order to combat the flexing phenomenon, which is fully prohibited for the 2023 season. But this is far from the only reason why Mercedes needs a new floor, as we should mention that the sidepod design has now been strengthened due to the new regulations, and therefore the floor needs to be a bit stronger in order to gain more downforce on the track. While the team remains cautious with their statements, it's evident that they don't want to give up too much of their enthusiasm, with Russell saying earlier this year that there is nothing as of now that shows that Mercedes won't be able to fight for the championship in 2023. But Mike Elliott has spoken with a bit more caution than the young Brit, and when discussing this matter, he added, "Obviously, we're well into next year's car at the moment. I think in terms of trying to predict what sort of lap time you need to find, it's quite difficult. I think there are races this year when we've been very close. In fact, our race performance has been pretty decent at a number of races, and there have been races where we're somewhere away. And I think what we've been trying to do is to understand that, and I think we do understand that now. We know what we need to put right." On the other hand, Wolff was full of praise for the W14, to which he said that although it looks exactly the same to him, it's a completely new version, one that will be revealed to the world on the 15th of February, one day after Ferrari and one day before Alpine's launch. Although Wolff said that whenever he enters the wind tunnels and believes that he's watching the W13, the technicians and the engineers have to convince him that it is in fact the W14 version of the car, and the surprises that they have built into it aren't visible with the naked eye, but will be visible once the car hits the track. What is more than certain is that Mercedes will face some issues when it comes to the driver's preferences. But before we go into that, let's see what Wolff had to say regarding catching up to Red Bull and Ferrari. As we all know, Mercedes definitely loves bluffing, and they want to enter the season as the underdogs, especially with how 2022 went. That is the same approach that Wolff had for the upcoming season as well, with him saying, "We have no doubt when you are starting behind by half a second, it's going to be difficult to catch up to great organizations like Red Bull and Ferrari. Having said that, we are super determined in doing just that, but we need to set our expectations at a realistic level. If we perform in the way we hope, then we'd like to be part of the racing at the very front." I think that would be a starting point, but we don't take that for granted. It could well be that the gaps are like they were at the end of last season, but I think there is so much potential still that's within our car, within the concept, the way we drive the car, that maybe our development slope can be steeper in the months to come. Still, the new version of the car will still have to overcome some aerodynamic issues, and the team has put itself in the perfect position to solve these issues thanks to Red Bull's sporting penalty and the Austrian team winning the Constructors' Championship last year. With Wolff stating that the team understood where they fell short last season, most likely referring to the braking issues as well as the porpoising issues, we can expect a very competitive Mercedes in 2023. But there is another question that we need to ask, and that is, who will be the #1 driver in Mercedes? In tough times, when the car was bouncing like crazy and Hamilton described it as a rattlesnake that needed to be tamed, Russell was the one that brought consistent points by finishing in the top 5. And he became the 3rd teammate to have beaten Hamilton in the same machinery. So now that they have a championship-winning car in their hands, what is going to happen? Earlier this season, Wolff spoke about this possibility, and he doesn't have a positive opinion when it comes to the drivers' respect for each other once both will be able to fight at the front, which could come as soon as 2023. Wolff said that the respect between Russell and Hamilton will likely be lost once it reaches the championship battling point, and Russell has shown immediately that he isn't here to sit back like a rookie and compliment Hamilton's races, just like Bottas did. With that being said, Red Bull should be afraid of Mercedes for the upcoming season, given the car that's being prepared in Brackley. What do you think will happen next with Mercedes? Let us know in the comments below.